It is difficult to overstate the joy of having set up your life in a way to express fully the things that matter most. The greatest difficulty, of course, is in identifying the things that truly matter to you. Something that I think is often most easily obtained through having lost everything, or through the imposition of constraints, artificial or natural. It forces you to identify what you really care about. You could, for instance, allocate 100 points between all the things that you purport to care about, and thereby get some indication of what you really care about, what really matters to you. For me, an even more powerful and visceral exercise, we'll call it, was losing everything. When my startup died, I was the most depressed I'd ever been. Suicidal adjacent. I never actually was going to kill myself, but I went to bed wishing that I didn't wake up for 2 years. Financially, I lost everything that I had. Emotionally, I was completely depleted. Friends, I was not alone. I had a couple of friends, to be sure, but this type of experience is always fundamentally individual. That experience, which is an emanation of being, can never really be shared by someone who hasn't experienced it. This is why you find greater camaraderie in having lost your mother with people who also have lost their mother, because they have shared that being, they have shared that experience. And so for me, when I lost everything, it was an opportunity to reevaluate everything from the fundamental premises, to reconstruct my life fully. When Chicago burned down, it afforded them an opportunity to rebuild things from the ground up, to fix the contradictions and the inefficiencies that had plagued the city, that they might then build a new, better, more efficient, more prosperous city. This is why, in part, Chicago is much more economically laid out, why it is able to collect trash better, and therefore is much cleaner than, for instance, a New York. Because it burned down so thoroughly, it was able to reconstruct logically from the ground up to better fit the needs of the day. Doubtless, Chicago will at some point again ossify and become inefficient, just as I will probably need to go through this recurrent cycle of creative destruction and again burn down myself metaphorically, hopefully artificially and not without needing to feel suicidal, or suicidal adjacent more accurately. But the joy I experience now, much like the citizens of Chicago enjoy the joy of the economy, of the planning of their city, and all the hard work that went into the construction of a new city, so now I reap daily, hourly, by the minute, the efforts of my intellectual efforts and my moral efforts that went into the reconstruction of myself and then my life. I live in a 10 by 10 foot room, and yet I glory in every day. I am getting emotional. I mean, this is the happiest I've ever been, the most joyful I've ever been. I mean, what is a 10 by 10 room against the glory of knowing oneself and living according to it? That with each breath, that in each breath is peace. That in each breath is joy. Periodically, every few hours, for the past multiple weeks, I've just bursted out laughing from joy. Much like a volcano erupts periodically, so I've been erupting in laughter just from joy. From having built a life that I love absolutely, thoroughly, that there is nothing in it that I find to be a contradiction. There is much room for growth. Obviously, I don't want to live in a 10 by 10 room for the rest of my life, but there is no contradiction in my life. That there is a completeness in my life. There is an integrity to my life. That my life has become integrated. That I have searched every corner of myself and known the landscape and taken possession of myself and removed the conflicts internally and externally, such that I have a completeness to my life now. That my mind will search for things that are wrong, it'll search for contradictions, and it will find none. I can't articulate to you, I can't express to you the joy that I have found in that. It might just be that it's a joy particular to me because of my particular issues, wants, desires. It reminds me of Wittgenstein's quote that a philosopher is struck by a disease, he needs to rid himself of many intellectual diseases before he reaches the notions of common sense. I think for many people who wonder about life's greatest questions or want deeply to understand themselves, they suffer immensely until they have these answers. And so perhaps this is just a consequent joy that I experience from the resolution of those issues and from answering some of the hardest questions. But I don't think so. I think this is merely the joy of being properly, of being ordered, of living according to who I am, to what I am. It's more than living authentically. It's living harmoniously, internally and externally. I'd heard a number of years ago from a friend who was an elderly gentleman. That makes him sound weak. He was a weightlifting champion. He was just old. Whose friend at 19 said that the purpose of life was to resolve all internal conflict. I think it's true, though I think it's incomplete. That the purpose of life is to resolve, in part, internal conflict, but also external conflict. You exist not merely internally, but also externally. That peace would be attained through the resolution of both. That you have to reconcile yourself, not only to yourself, but also to the world. And this, I think, is largely what I've obtained, is that I have known myself and resolved all internal conflicts, but have also now been able to resolve all external conflicts. That my surroundings, my life around me, what I do on a daily basis, how I spend my hours, everything is according to design. Everything is according to my will, to what I want. There is no minute that I spend in my life doing things I don't want to do. What an achievement. What a blessing. But really more of an achievement than a blessing. And I say that without hubris, but it is rather a validation and a verification of the power that exists within all of us. That we don't need to require blessings which always depend on someone else. That you can author your own life, that you can construct and architect your days to be as beautiful and as joyful and as wonderful as mine have been. That through immense effort often, these things can be attained. You can know a joy that supersedes happiness. Happiness which is ephemeral, which vacillates, which fades. You can know a joy that transcends it, that is above it, that is below it, that is before it. That even when I'm moody and in a bad mood or sad or this or suffering whatever pangs of emotion beset us, there is through all of that a joy of being. For the first time in my life, I feel as though I truly love being alive. Is that not a question of truly loving being, loving who you are, what you are? But how could you ever attain that if you don't seek it? If you don't seek to understand yourself fully and thoroughly? How well do you understand yourself? Ask yourself why you love what you love, and then ask why again, and then ask why again. Very soon you'll stop being able to answer that why. And there is the limit of your self-knowledge. And the limit of your self-knowledge will be the limit of how much joy and peace you're able to attain. I don't pretend a complete mastery or a complete self-awareness and understanding. I have still so much to learn. But the joy that I've been able to attain thus far is more than encouraging. It's an affirmation of the goodness of life, of the potential goodness of existence. I do think existence is good in and of itself, but it's so empowering that reality can be altered and our experience can be altered to make it great for ourselves, that you are not subject, you are not beholden to a life that you hate, that you can change things, you can make your life great, you can love your life. Every moment of it, every breath of it can be filled with joy and peace. That is attainable to you. Ask yourself if you have lived a day like that. I hadn't for 31 years. And now I live it every day. What wealth that is. Again, I have a completeness of being, not in its scale, but it's in its integrity. Again, I don't want to live in a 10 by 10 room for the rest of my life. I don't think I will. But there's a completeness of being, much like the core of the earth. There's a completeness to it. It's solid. And on top of that, I will add extra layers, and the thing will grow in size and scale, but the completeness of the being is what mattered most. And much like the analogy to the earth, it is only with a raging hot core and the completeness of core that you can then emanate and grow in completeness and size. Everything that is added unto you without that completeness of being is precarious. It's much like adding more and more stories to a building that has as its foundation a cracked and insecure foundation. Every additional floor that you would add, the more money that you get, the more cars you have, the more people you add in your life, all of those become, in a sense, riskier. Not only does the risk increase with each thing that you add, and the probability of maintaining it decreases, but the more that you add, the more it distracts from the weak foundations. The more floors you have, the more a building occupies your field of view up, the less you are to look down. This is why I always hesitate with the word blessing, but perhaps why my company failing was a true blessing, because it destroyed everything. There were no floors up. There wasn't even a first floor. I don't even know that there was a ground floor. But I could then re-examine the foundation and start rebuilding that core. And what fruits it has produced. I have lived in penthouses. My net worth has, on paper, been millions. And here I am in a 10 by 10 room, broke, negative net worth. And yet I am the happiest, most joyful, and frankly strongest that I have ever been. All of the good things that I'd had in my life, what seemed good, were precarious. My net worth, my finances, where I lived. It's not like I was living like a king or anything, but I had many things going for me. But they all rested on a shaky foundation, which was an incompleteness of being, because I didn't know who I was. Socrates, I think it was Socrates, said, "Know thyself." We all know it, but how many of us take it seriously? Do you know yourself? Probably not. Probably not fully. I certainly don't. But then, do we have the courage and the conviction to extricate ourselves from all that is not expressions of what and who we are, to rid ourselves of people who are misaligned with who we are, with cities that are misaligned with who we are, with jobs that are misaligned with who we are. It's easy to complain about our jobs, we all do, but take seriously that complaint and have respect enough for yourself to seek to remove that imposition on your life. Tolerate nothing that is bad in your life, and you will, in the end, have a great life. Tolerate it where you must, but tolerate only things that are time-bound, that you will not accept forever. Tolerate only the indefinite. Rather, never tolerate the indefinite. Never allow something bad to persist in your life. Aim to fix it, even if it's just one thing. Aim to fix it today. What agency, what power comes to you through fixing something in your life and seeing the effect of your hands, of your work? What more can you do? What more can you become? How much more can you love your life?